Andrew Jones.
Evening. You want to go first? Or should I always defer to the selectman in the room before I dig in? So I think, I mean, we can do a line-by-line thing, but I think maybe the better approach is let's talk about what's really moving the numbers. This is a compilation of all the department heads' requests without much consideration for how it all adds together, and it adds together to a number that's much too big. So some work to do. I think in terms of what's driving the budget and the change, we found a better place to spend time than individual line items at this point. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I won't go line by line. Dig into actual year-to-date numbers you see are we're on the same pace that we typically are at this time of year. We're gonna finish the year under budget because we have to. Some big year-end decisions of the board. Or surplus, if you think. But we're on pace to be within the budget as we always are. We're on track for this year without any surprises. Looking ahead, the 2022 proposal. I'll just go by section here. The first section, executive, is the lumping in of a number of different functions. To start off on line 4, we've proposed a cost of living adjustment for our employees. We haven't done that in some time. The compensation method that we've been using is annual merit increases, which is intended to capture some of the cost of living increases that our employees live with. But this is a different environment. We're going to see throughout the budget how prices of things go up. As you're seeing the prices of things. Our department heads are looking for something that we can give to our people to help them. Inflation is running 6-something%, give or take. Our folks are effectively taking pay cuts. What the staff has proposed is a cost of living adjustment to take effect in the second quarter, which allows us to get past town meeting and see what the budget will really look like. 4%. Both permanent employees, and leaves a little bit in there for merit. tried to do both together, but inflation is running as hot as it is. We felt like we had to do something a little bit different this year because competing for people and losing people. So. Each permanent employee gets an annual performance review, and some kind of compensation adjustment typically, almost always takes place with that. So everybody merits something typically. Underperforming employees don't, but everybody else, and that's how we've done it for the past 6, 7, 8 years, but there's no, excuse me, across the board, everyone gets X. It hasn't been for several years now, so that that's how honestly, that's a lot of town governments work that way. There's a COLA or a step increase. Your time served, your pay automatically goes up. With a cost of living adjustment, your pay automatically goes up. We haven't done those things. It's all been lumped in as a merit. And what's different this year is we're calling out that across the board, COLA, shrinking what would be the merit pool and pinning and getting everybody the same cost of living adjustment at the same time.
Chris, why is it in the budget here as one line item for everybody as opposed to like in individual salary listings? Yeah,
this comes up, and it's a problem every year, this oddball line item that doesn't apply to anybody in particular. It goes back to the creation of the merit pool. We don't prejudge, we don't decide in December what the raises are going to be throughout the year. So rather than try and get the department by department merit raises figured out a year in advance, that's not really how performance-based compensation would work. So we've always lumped it in here and never spent any of it in this line, the actual expense of it. Like if somebody gets a raise in March, their actual wages will show up in the actual department line item as with everything else. So
does that mean that like all of the other salaries that are listed in here, I'm not going to see an increase and it's all rolled into this one line item?
Yeah, any increase that you see from last year to this year, from 21 to 22 in the budget, is actually two things. It is it reflects an increase that they would have got this year, so some small percentage of everybody, because the actual in this line is 0, right? So those actual pay changes will be reflected in the actual amounts, and then be carried forward to the following year. The 2022 budget line for each department is essentially our December 31st wages for everybody and the hours they work for everybody carried forward. Is that clear as mud?
I think so.
Okay. The second thing that will be reflected in the payroll lines that changes is new positions or changes in the number of hours expected to work, and I'll call those out for you as we go through. So if every position was full throughout a full year and everyone got a merit raise, any given payroll line item would actually be over budget for the year by design, because this line is always 0.
Gotcha.
Okay.
The only other thing I want to point out about that, the COLA, is that, we've got good employees right now, and we want to take care of them. We want to retain them. Anybody who is involved in hiring people knows how hard it is to find people right now. And so we don't want to lose them.
Because everybody's looking for people.
Yes.
There's places they could go.
And I want to point out too that I like this methodology of putting the increases all basically in a lump sum and then kind of distributing them as merit-based, that way it's somebody may get a bigger percentage than somebody else, and that's really good, instead of doing this blanket COLA thing. it's performance-based, so it's rewarded.
Yeah, at least in the budget development piece, let's say we want to do a different number for the COLA as we go through this process. It's actually very easy from our point of view to produce that, doing it this way too. It's just, rather than chasing
Yep.
100 people and all that, so it isn't, this way to track it and present it isn't perfect, but it's consistent, at least. It's consistently
So does the
imperfect.
77,000 represent a 6%?
No, it represents a 4% for 3/4 of the year,
Right.
so 3%,
Okay.
the net for the year, plus 2% of the entire base as a merit pool. So the merit range would typically, depending on how the board sets it up as we come into the year, the merit pay range would be 0 to 2%, or 0 to 3 probably, to accommodate some under 2%. So what this number, this is a calculated number. It is now 5% of the base salary of all the eligible positions throughout the budget. That's where it comes from.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, other big movers here on line 21, the Lake Host program that tries to prevent invasive species from getting in the lake has long asked the select board for support through an ETF that we have, the invasive species trust fund that we have. They have asked the board to put that support into the operating budget because of the increased likelihood that we're gonna need to use that fund for remediation. The lake, the milfoil in Pawtuckaway has, I don't wanna say exploded, but it's a much different situation there now than it was 2 years ago.
Is
Some
this
of you
gonna
are probably,
replace the warrant article money they ask for every year?
that is not what they've requested. So that's up to the board and to you all. They're both here. The warrant article is still here, so it's a net increase in that function.
So the thinking is, and John can certainly jump in as well, but, there are multiple locations in the lake right now, and there is milfoil in places that, like 6 or 7 different places, and in
Yep.
places that we would not have anticipated it being. We have a very dedicated group of folks who have gone, these people who are divers, who have gone and learned how to pull milfoil safely, right? It's a very delicate and complicated process. They've gone and learned how to do that, but they're having trouble keeping up with it, because it's just, once you get it, it just continues to spread and spread quickly. So what they wanna do is they want to be able to increase the coverage of hours that they're providing with the lake hosts, without totally dipping into that, fund that they may need to mitigate from a, bigger disaster. The number, John, I think is something like, if you have to go in and mitigate it, and you don't have the resources to do it on your own, it's like $30,000 per acre.
Yeah, it's very expensive.
And that's what that fund has always been for in that event. And, people always ask, yes, it falls to the town. Yes, the lake, state park borders, the state park borders the lake, but yes, it falls to the town.
Right, it's a town resource. I mean, the Lake Association is working to try and show, to get funds from the state to assist with stuff like that as well. The divers basically all volunteer their time. The Lake Association paid for those courses. The fund has contributed approximately it's gone down. It used to be basically funded 1/3 by the grant, 1/3 by the town, and 1/3 by the PLIA for the lake hosts. Now it's equal parts town and PLIA, and then the grant makes up that difference, which that number keeps going down. So unfortunately, that means that the lake host program gets more expensive for the other two contributors.
The lake hosts are the people that inspect people's boats.
Yes, those are, right.
Is the
So-
milfoil essentially, inevitable at this point, now that it's all
Well,
over the lake?
it's in different basically, inevitable that it is there. It's there, it's probably something we're going to have forever. The idea is to keep it under control, because otherwise, if it gets out of control, it technically will destroy the lake for all recreational activities at all. My understanding is that there's some towards the town beach now, which that area is very shallow, and if that gets, I mean, basically that, if that whole section became really terribly infested, it would just be like going through a bed of grass, wet lawn, basically, kind of.
But that's up in the fundy area, which is the most shallow part of the
Right.
lake, and that's why it's the riskiest part.
What percentage of the lake is in Raymond?
0.
Zero? Well, I thought,
Yep.
it's all Nottingham, huh? Thought part of it was in Raymond.
Yep, no, right, you have to, right, you gotta drive through Raymond to, and that's why people think that, because you have to drive through Raymond to get to the state park entrance.
It seems a little odd, no, like I live by the boat ramp, public boat ramp there. Like you can go there at 7 o'clock on Saturday morning and there's not a place for anybody to park, you know, so it just kind of seems a little odd that we're left footing the whole bill for this when, I mean, by and large, it's those folks that are coming in that probably brought the milfoil, not town residents, so I'm not raising a fuss, I'm just thinking like,
Right.
and I don't know legality, if there's like a pay to park we can do to kind of help offset that, but it's like, it is not, by and large, you know, town folks that are coming and going from the boat ramp that are causing it or, you know, benefiting from this.
So part of the boat registrations is supposed to help fund, invasive mitigation and stuff like that, but it's a very small percentage. Then you get all the kayaks and canoes and non-motorized boats that pay 0 into that. So, you know, there's,
There's also a number of, private boat launches as well, right, and that.
And they're taking their boats everywhere and then
those are the
coming
sore
back. Yeah.
Spots, because you don't have people inspecting boats.
Right.
In my neighborhood, we have instituted somebody's gotta be there to inspect somebody's boat if it comes in. Yeah, I mean, it's hard, and the folks who are, you know, driving the PLA and the, Lake Coast program are working very hard, trying to work closely with the state park. The state park honestly feels no obligation to contribute anything towards it, but they're.
well, the state park themselves, but the park manager has been really wonderful to work with, has helped a ton.
The scale of this problem is gonna require a legislative solution that's
right.
bigger than
Because
anything.
lakes get lost
It
to
is,
it,
it
it's
will.
nasty, you know,
Right.
it really is bad.
It's
Yeah,
evolving.
Yeah, and if you can look at any lake community, you know, any community in the state with a significant lake in it, they're dealing with the same kinds of things we are. You'd be horrified to read a town warrant along the perimeter of Winnipesaukee and what the towns there are doing for this is, they print money up there, those towns, but it's big numbers. Yeah.
That's too bad.
Okay.
The only question I have on that one, Chris,
Yep.
is would you wanna create a new line, because that old name was when it, from the old Lake Advisory Committee that was like with the selectmen and
Yeah, we can do that. Admittedly, it was a plug. It was like, where can we stick this?
Okay.
It would be a select board kind of initiative. It's not something coming out of like the Conservation Commission or something, so we stuck it in there, but if it gets real, we'll probably make it its own line.
That 8,000 come out of the conservation fund? I think there's like $400,000 sitting in there.
I don't think so. That's for land acquisition and preservation, land, not waters. So I haven't seen an angle there for that. It's not land, so,
Oh,
yeah.
wasn't it dammed up? It was land.
Yes,
Naturally,
that's
it's
fair,
land.
yes.
There you go.
It's gotta be land if milfoil gets.
Yes, at some point there was land there, yes.
'Cause that's something to look into, cause that fund gets replenished every time there's development.
Yeah, I'll go, I think that question's been asked, but I'll double check it. I don't know. I don't remember the full answer, but we'll keep that hope alive. I don't imagine I'll get by without answering something about line 23, the actual this year. The judgment against the town for the loss in the chemical trespass lawsuit. We had to pay the legal fees for the opposing side because we lost that judgment. That's not something we can just go into the bank and take the money. We gotta take it out of appropriated funds somehow,
That
so.
could probably come out of conservation funds, since that was a conservation effort.
No, that I'm even more certain than the other ones. Can, so,
I know.
yeah.
I mean, I could say I told you so. I got up and said that it would lead to a lawsuit and easily lose.
Judge doesn't care. Yeah. Next section's the town clerk, nothing dramatic changing here. Do have a deputy in place, and a stabilizing schedule.
That's what DTC is, deputy town.
Yeah, DTC is deputy town clerk. And that stability, I think is what's driving the salary line down. You know, we can count on a consistent schedule. We know what the world's gonna look like. Not much else worth mentioning there, I don't think.
What are the fees?
Fees, town clerk gets paid a wage and a fee by statute. Like when you register a car, he or she gets a couple of bucks out of each of those transactions. That's how the town
Oh,
clerks
so
are
this
compensated.
line's just essentially offset with revenue.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Those revenues continue to climb. We won't do revenues tonight, but motor vehicle registration continues to jump up by about $100,000 a year. It really helps offset our bottom line quite a bit. Next is elections. 2022, we'll have 3 elections. We'll have the March town elections and second part of town meeting, with the September state primary, and a November state general election. We're not very good at projecting what it's gonna take in terms of hourly staff to run those. We make a guess and we use what we have to. Hopefully, the world goes back to the old normal and we don't have to incur a whole lot of additional expenses around the elections. But this section bounces around a lot with the election calendar. Like this year, we didn't have much of anything, so it was an easy year.
It's on a weird 4-year cycle.
Yeah, 2 and 4. The 2s are big and the 4s are huge and the odds are uneventful.
Right.
Yeah.
Small. Regular.
We'll call out, the moderator has requested that we budget money for a new ballot counting machine. We have a single ballot counting machine, and the state is evaluating what the next generation or what the next round of those will look like. We can only buy what the state determines is allowed. Can't go shopping
Is
for a
this to
device.
replace the current one?
It's to be a backup for starters, because getting those fixed is getting harder and harder. The ones that we all use now aren't made anymore. There's a pool of like crash bar, panic ballot counters available from the vendor and the state, but there really is not much of a fix for them. So if something goes wrong, we're gonna be back to counting things.
Well, I
by-
heard somebody wanted to put in a warrant article to make ballot counting go back to manual, so I think it's a terrible idea, but it might solve this problem.
So would everybody that works the election.
Right?
That person is also volunteering.
I know, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
What is LHS up here in?
LHS is the vendor that provides the programming for that machine, for
Okay.
that ballot counting machine. There's a chip or a card that goes in to teach it what the ballot means as it, so it gets reprogrammed. We buy that service and the printing of the ballots from that vendor. It is the vendor, there is no other alternative for that.
Got the whole state, so, one contract.
Financial administration, nothing dramatic there. The tax collector, the relatively new tax collector, would like to get more training and get certified. She's had, I think, 2 years now. She's coming up on 2 years, but it's been 2 COVID years, so the training that would typically be available to her has not really been the same, so she would like to go and do that. That shows up here. We will have credit card capability for property taxes for your next bill. We're in the process of implementing that now.
That's a money loser. 'Cause now we
Well,
gotta pay fees.
no, the town doesn't pay the fees, the payer,
The
the
payer
credit
is
card
always-
user does,
okay.
yeah, it's still free to pay in cash or with a check, so if you wanna do that.
That line item 60?
Line 6, yes, that's, you'll see that the vendor there, we're gonna pay a little bit more for software for that capability, and then their base price went up a little bit too, so that's why that's changing. You see, we anticipated that with a budget increase to get into this year, and we'll carry it forward. AS is assessing, this, where we no longer have a dedicated staff person in that role, so this budget section, it means less and less, because all the support costs that went along with that position are slowly being subsumed by other office functions. It's not a standalone function like it used to be, but we do still have key vendors that are the bulk of the costs here. That's our contract assessor Avatar, which does both the assessing work and provides the software that we use to keep track of everything.
How do you come up with the, line item 82, is that just based on history or the attorney?
82, oh, you skipped ahead on me. So that's assessing. 82, legal, that is admittedly a guess.
Shot in the dark.
Yep, we pushed that way up 2 years ago for the big lawsuit that's now done. And we had the chemical trespass ordinance going. We were still litigating that. We weren't really litigating. We were trying to lay down and get out of the way, but anyway, we may get to December and say to ourselves that 40's too much. We'll have a sense of, we don't have much outstanding right now. We've got one BTLA land tax appeal underway. In terms of litigation, it's quiet. We also use them for all kinds of other supports, general representation on stuff and inquiries, but we may come back and say that we don't need that much as we get to the end of this process. PA's personnel administration. Line 86 is the health and dental insurance benefits for our employees. Not planning on any changes there in the program. The premiums have gone down. We've seen ups and downs in the last few years in that 6, 7, 8% range. I don't know, the school's in essentially the same thing. I know you went down. You didn't get 8%, but
But we're,
yeah.
they're guaranteed maximum for next year is like 7.2.
Okay.
We'll find out the actual rate.
The hard part for us here is projecting which plans are we gonna have employees in. Singles, couples, families are dramatically different costs for us, even though the employee portion is bigger with those family plans. So we're kind of looking at what we have today, what our history has been, and making a guess at what that will be. This line also reflects the new positions that I will pull out as we go through here. So we've got an increased head count on that, on those same plans. So that number's gonna move around as the head count moves around. With that and with our property and liability insurance and with our short-term disability insurance, we're in a pool, and we often get savings back late in the year as being part of that pool. The pool hasn't used all it needs, and it shares that back with us, but we can't anticipate that because we never know what it's gonna be. So we have to budget the full amount of the premiums. We have guaranteed maximum premiums, but we oftentimes, you'll see notes about credits coming back to us. So we have to budget the full amount. We sometimes don't pay the full amount. FICA and Medicare are pegged to the payroll base, just like the COLA that we talked about. Those are statutory. PD and fire retirements, those are through the New Hampshire retirement system. In July of this year, the employer portion of those retirement benefits went up. So we paid it for an increase for 6 months this year. We'll pay for that increase for a full month, for a full year next year. That's that, and the proposed new firefighter positions are driving those lines up, and we'll come back and talk firefighter positions later, but that's what's moving those numbers. The non-police and fire employees do not participate in the retirement system here in Nottingham. We have a 457, it's like a 401k. We've seen a little bit more participation in that, so we have to increase that benefit a little bit. PB is planning board. They've had a busy year. There's a lot in the pipeline, subdivisions and lot line adjustments and things. That drives traffic for us. That's all the administrative costs that go into that. There's an offsetting revenue for a lot of it, because a lot of it's paid for by fees from the applicants, but we are seeing more, we have seen more traffic there.
The thing I noticed was the secretary's salary going up 13.8%.
Yeah, that is a combination of more hours. Yep,
Okay.
yep. We've got a new, that wage went up this year too. Just, we had a turnover, and that'll drive that number a little bit. Most of it's hours though. Planning and zoning from a staff perspective kind of get muddled together. We've got the same person doing both of those functions, so you know, that some of that traffic burden you see. Zoning's less busy, but still active. Nothing going on budget-wise there. THOB means town hall and other buildings. I think I found somebody that wants to do some maintenance work for us, which has been a struggle, and I wanted to take advantage of that. Most of that in this building. If you've been following, I don't know if you've talked or your select board rep has talked to you about the old town hall down the street. We're working with the school board and the school district to try and miraculously turn a portion of that building into an office for the new SAU. That will have an effect on some of these lines, depending on how that shakes out. We'll know more by the end of the month, actually. Some of this is guesswork. We don't know what's gonna go wrong. We don't have any great plans for major repairs other than the old town hall. The new heating system in this building, it continues, we continue to be comfortable reducing the budget for that. It's much more efficient. We did that 2 winters ago, and I keep pulling that number down a little bit every year. And it's working well. works better. This works, but you've been in here, you were in here, winter heating season time. Air conditioning season's a little tougher in here, but you don't have to be here for that.
It's pretty tough in some winters too.
Well, yeah, you haven't been here for a while. Back in the old days, it was tough, but it's not so bad now.
Last year we were home.
Yeah, you were home
But
last
I
year.
think
yeah.
the year before it wasn't bad.
Yeah, that was the first winter for
Yeah, yeah,
that system.
That was good, I was impressed.
Why was the recycling building maintenance double last year, or this year?
We had, let's see, what did we do up there? Well, we drove into a door. Something else that had to get fixed too.
Still not very large.
Oh, it's the, in all likelihood, it's the, waste oil furnace. That building is heated by the oil that people, recycle. That's a nightmare. They, to get clean enough fuel into it, and then, we learned a lot about that machine in the last year, and had not been doing an important part of the maintenance cycle of it. So I'm hoping that now that we know better how to run the thing, we'll stop having the problems we do. They're challenging as it is. We got rid of the one in the highway garage, for really the same reasons. So I think that's a big chunk of this, was a major repair to that. It's never balmy in there, but you gotta keep it, workable for when it's open and keep the plumbing from freezing, so. I'm just gonna keep rolling unless you interrupt me. Cemetery is uneventful. Insurance, this is, property and liability insurance is one of those, a premium holiday is another word for a credit or a kickback from the pool. We had a big one this year. But the premiums do keep going up on us. Line 166, this is a new concept. The planning board has asked that the town go back to being a full member of the Regional Planning Commission, paying dues, getting the services of a dues-paying community, getting to vote in the affairs of the commission because we pay dues. They right now, on a contract basis, provide us with a circuit rider planner, the technical support for the planning board. And the board would like to go back to being, I think it's been at least a decade since we were a dues-paying member.
What do we get other than voting?
There are some services that you can buy a la carte now that you'd get for free, like, they do some mapping and some, traffic count kinds of things that we've paid them to do in the past. What else? There's something else. It's probably not a dollar for dollar replacement in terms of things that we would buy, but it's I think a recognition also that we need to participate in the regional discussions of things that affect the course of.
Is it worth it?
Yeah, I think it's relatively short money. We're gonna be looking for 5,000s here and there as this project goes along, this process goes along.
But, I mean, it looks like we haven't used them the last couple of years.
Yeah, we haven't had anything come up that we would pay for otherwise, like a traffic count thing or, something like that. Some of that is probably COVID driven, that we just haven't been looking for added projects like that.
So why are they proposing it right
Right,
now?
that's exactly, yeah. Is there something that they're looking to do that would require these services as opposed to paying a la carte?
I don't know. I'll get somebody to get you that answer.
Yeah.
I don't wanna speak for the planning board,
Right,
but
and then
I will,
what would the
yeah.
proposed a la carte be?
Yeah, I mean, there, again, I haven't talked to about any of
Yeah.
these, I can't remember that specifically, but there could be some advantage to having continuity.
Right, yeah, and
Yeah.
that's really what we're trying to find out.
Yeah, there may be a little bit of a discount on the stuff we're paying for through the planner too, I don't know, but I'll see that they get you an answer on that.
Okay, thanks.
It just jumps out that we've done without it for a couple
At
of
least 2
years,
years,
even though it was
yeah.
COVID. And so, what is it they're going to do that's
Right.
worth a 532% increase?
Yeah, I mean, one thing you gotta keep in mind too is that, like, with no disrespect to anybody on any board, but we're people who live in town who aren't necessarily all experts in
Right.
specific areas. And there are boards and situations where you can really benefit from expert guidance, so.
No,
Okay.
that's all, we're just looking for what,
The why.
what do we need the expertise for?
Yeah, yeah.
And that goes in line with the fact that, as you were mentioning, we were talking about earlier, the subdivisions, et cetera, that all of that is going through a boom right now. And there may be a need for more questions than there were.
But it also sounds like we can reach out to this regional planning place, you know, if we have questions, and also it sounds like we can buy their services à la carte, so I
When
would
we
have
need
to
them.
see like the previous years and see what we spent that, you know,
And those are the
are we getting
kinds of
something for
decisions-
bundling and
Those are
paying
the
it?
kinds of decisions that you have to make when you.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the PD, odd situation in payroll in the budget going down. We came into this year, two things happened. We had a lot of senior people retire in the last 2 years. 3 with 15+ years of service, so that has budgetary implications along the way. And we also, coming into this year, budgeted for the payouts for one or two of those people that we knew we were gonna have to do the retirement accumulated stuff that we owed those people. So we did that, and we don't need to budget for that again. So that's what's moving that number as much as anything. We hope and expect to be fully staffed in the PD early next year with the return of our last, we have one officer who's deployed, and is coming home, and that would make, when he comes back, we will have a full staff there for the first time in a long time. The overtime, the chief is looking ahead at the 300th celebrations and trying to anticipate what they're gonna need outside of their regular schedule. When the big events come along, they can't pull somebody off of patrol to work those big events for the 300. So she's anticipated that here. That's driving the change in the overtime line here. Anything that we need, the way we've budgeted this, anything we need in terms of additional help, there will be times in the 300th events where we need detail help from other towns, because we won't have enough people. We just don't have enough people on staff to cover at least the two biggest events planned for the 300s. Those will have to be paid for by the fund that's been set up by the 300th.
I noticed that the part-time number for this year is almost 20,000.
Yeah, that is
How does that work exactly?
that's a part-time to full-time. We had an officer working part-time before he went to the academy, and in filling of a slot that would have been a full-time employee. So the best way to look at the salary lines is to put them together. One's under, one's over. That's part of it. We had a part-time officer working probably 30-something hours a week for a while over the summer before he went to the full-time academy. So
What's headcount this year? Full-time, part-time?
right
What
now,
will it be this year?
yeah, we have 7, including the chief, 7 sworn officers right now, all full-time. and no part-time. Our part-time officer has departed. We may have one in the works. And when, the one comes home from deployment, that'd be 8, including the chief.
So this, including the chief.
Yeah,
So
I
this year,
think, let me-
this year will be 8 full-timers
yeah.
and 0 part-timers?
Yeah, well, we would like to have a part-timer. We've budgeted for a part-timer. We think we have one identified. I think that's the last I heard from the chief. If she isn't able to hire that person, we won't have it, but right away, anyway.
But, so, 8 and a part-time.
8, and a
is-
part-time being like a shift a week, kind of
Right,
part-time.
Okay,
yeah.
so,
10
but
hours.
the part-time would continue even when the deployed person comes back?
Yes.
When's that person coming back?
February was the last I heard. Early February, return, maybe takes a couple weeks to, decompress or something.
Almost a whole year then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The chief is trying to bring some sense of normalcy back to the department, right, because people have worked so many hours, particularly over the course of COVID, right?
Yeah, burnout everywhere.
What's AA?
What's that?
What's salary AA?
Administrative assistant.
Oh.
That's the non-uniformed employee at the department. We have a single, record keep, receptionist, record keeping, she handles the sex offender registry, all the administrative stuff behind the scenes for the courts and.
So she's part of that merit pool? and part of
Yep, part of the merit pool, but not part of the police retirement system.
that? Okay,
But does way more than, like, administrative assistant.
I'm sure.
She has more support for the department.
Yeah, it's court support and that kind of stuff. I don't understand half of it. Other things changing here, training, the requirements for uniformed officers, the state requirements are increasing in terms of the amount of time certified officers have to be in training. It was, 2 years ago, it was 8 hours a year. Was that
That's
was the,
not a lot.
right? Over 4 or 5 years, that's going to 32 or 40 hours a year in training. I think for a lot of our people, we were over that anyway, but we absolutely have to be at the minimum of, what does she have us at here? 24 now, we're working our way up. Yeah, 24 hours per
Per
officer.
officer.
Yeah.
Just a general question.
Yep.
I noticed that the postage is just going crazy.
Yeah.
Is there a way to kind of get a handle on that?
Do we have a contract with anybody for postage?
We've got a Pitney Bowes machine, that, weighs stuff and does it as, but the rates have gone up, I don't know how much.
I mean, all the departments, a lot of money.
Anybody in this building, runs through that same postage machine. We do it all, I don't know of any ways to we're not doing a lot of, there's one thing we have to ship. Sometimes she's, shipping equipment to get repaired out of PD. That spiked this number. She was talking about that recently. But we don't, other than that, we don't do a lot of shipping of stuff. We send a lot of mail, a lot of certified mail, a lot of,
Rent the machine for the mail?
Yeah.
Or do you, okay.
yeah.
And you have a service contract with it too? Alright.
Yeah, the postage rate is the postage rate.
Right,
It
no,
doesn't-
I'm just
yeah.
talking about the
The
costs
hardware
that
and
you
the-
can fix,
Yeah.
just
So is that just distributed, the rental and the?
Yeah, when you mail something, you push a button and it goes to a
Right, no,
department
no,
or
but I
whatever.
mean, in the
Yeah.
budget,
it's all broken down.
it's all
Yeah.
it's split out
Postage,
between the
postage,
different
postage.
things,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, it's, within some degree of accuracy,
Right.
It's not perfect, but there are 4 or 5 choices. Yeah, I know how to mail stuff. You put the thing and you hit executive and then it
Right.
gets billed to the thing. I don't know, but
Yeah.
there are 4 or 5 choices and those choices get spread across the various budget lines, yeah.
Would
Yeah, you'll
y'all-
see postage like in the planning, it jumped in planning and zoning because they send a lot of certified stuff, they have to. So, Yeah, but if anybody's got any other ideas, I'm happy to.
I just don't know, like,
but-
what your contract length is. I know there's other places that do, those types of services. I mean, I know the monthly maintenance is worth it for the contracting, but, like, there's other places too. I don't know if you have looked at any other places or willing to. I know it's
Yeah,
kind of
certainly
a
would
pain,
if,
so.
yeah, I have not, like, put a flag up and said, call me with your great postage deals, cause you
Right.
know the phone will ring off the hook, but.
They will.
But I'm happy to shop that around. I'm sure we've probably been with where we are long enough that we can get out of it if we,
Or just ask for a better rate, like, just
Yeah.
let them know you're looking.
yeah. That's a Pitney Bowes, I think.
When I look at the police department total, 1.4% is very acceptable to me.
Used to work for printing.
Yep.
The look.
Yeah, that's a function of the change in the budget as much as the change, you know, we kinda backed into that. We got lucky on that one. We'll take it. Yeah, a couple of equipment purchase things to note. One is e-ticket printers. We now have the laptop computers in the cruisers, but they're still handwriting tickets. So I've heard. But the world is going to, you know, printed things. The state doesn't want to deal with handwritten anything. They want it all to be in the system. They're gonna get printers in the cars that you can just hand somebody a printed summons with.
As postage and printing.
And also, one of those signs that you drive by that flash at you, tell you how fast you're driving. You know, slow down, you're 20 miles over the limit. So I've heard.
Well, it does that, but it can also be used to program it with other messages.
Yeah, there's other messages you can put on it too, yeah.
I'm surprised they don't have one in front of the school.
Chief is working on getting that designated as a school zone. Navigating that bureaucracy, I think, has been a bit of a challenge. But
It's more challenging because it's a state highway.
that's the only challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Regular.
What's that?
I think that's regular speed right now, it's not.
Mm. Yeah, it's nuts. Yeah.
The uniforms line,
Ones that don't get talking.
Right.
ballistic vest stuff, is that a one-time?
The
Thing or a-
vest, I think, I bet that becomes let's get upgraded, let's do one a year. This is one, there's not $10,000 for one vest, but,
One for each officer?
no, there's a single one in this line, I believe.
It's a uniform update, whatever that means.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. She's getting a new kind of vest to carry, all the gear they have. There's something, you should ask her, but there's something that's dramatically better from an ergonomic point of view to carry all the weight that they do with all their gear. She's put that is for everyone. There's one ballistic vest and a full complement of these new something vests.
It's more, this is simplifying it, but it's more comfortable for them
Yeah.
is part of it, right? Because they're wearing these heavy vests, and if they come back to the station and they're, working on something while they're at the station, it's hard to get the current ones off, and it's uncomfortable, so it's kind of more like a more streamlined, more efficient, more comfortable one for them.
I'm just wondering why it bounces around. It was like 11, and then it was 4.5, and now back to 11.
Like a 2-year cycle or something.
Yeah, well, I know the vests don't last that many years.
Yeah, this would include, this is all uniform stuff, so when there's turnover, there's more uniform expenses. They, I don't think you wanna know what they do to try and make stuff last and hand stuff from one to another, but, it's driven as much by turnover as anything else because of the change in, we have to uniform all these folks, so, that's, I think, why that number bounces around. And admittedly, this is something that historically we have looked at the end of the year and said, okay, I got a guy that could really use a couple pairs of pants. If I got money at the end of the year, can I do that? And that will do this too.
Line item 183. 2 years ago, you spent 1389, this year it's 992. You keep budgeting 5,600.
You're gonna, the actual will jump on that, cause they're buying a couple of machines this month. I don't, let me see what the, wireless situation is there. I'm not sure what she's looking to buy there with the e-Cronus. That's a service. But I'll have her get some more detail on that for you.
Maybe you can find out what they have been spending money on.
Yeah,
the last
I think
couple
that's
of
an
years.
A, Chris. It should be, I believe it's
Cronus?
a Cronus, yeah.
yeah. Okay. All right, anything else on police? Keep rolling. Fire and rescue. So the chief has been working, fire chief has been working his way toward, round-the-clock staffing for the department. We have right now 3 slots, 3 career full-time firefighter EMT slots, and they cover essentially Monday through Saturday daytime hours. And the call force covers evenings, overnights, and Sundays, broadly speaking. He's been increasing the use of part-time or per diem people to cover those evenings to try and have better response times in the evenings and to lift the burden off the call force. The call force is the formal name for the volunteer fire department. The call force, the number of people that are active in the department and willing to come out and answer those calls is shrinking every year. There's a shockingly small number of people that are carrying the load in the call force. It's probably 6, something like that.
It's
I guess
getting
I-
harder and harder to get volunteers for anything.
Yeah.
I guess I would expect if the full-time salary line's going up by 27,000, that we would see an offset somewhere, whether it be part-time or
The way that he has modeled this is it is when you talk about going around the clock, it's a doubling of the career force. Go from 3 to 6. We can't afford that all at once in 1 year. So he's starting it late in the year, after 8 months into the year, assuming we can find and fill these positions. Over time, what will happen is this number, the full-time salary line will continue to go up as we get to full year coverage of around-the-clock staffing, and eventually the part-time salary and the stipend on 199, those shrink dramatically. Yeah, it won't
Stipend
happen
is what the
in real
volunteers
time, but,
get, right?
pardon?
The stipend is what the volunteers get.
Yeah, the stipend is a pool-based thing for the call force, the volunteers. The more active they are through the year, the more points they get, the more points they have, the bigger chunk of this pool, stipend pool they get. Eventually, those folks, we still need those folks, we still need those occasional participating skilled people that live in town or close to town. We're still gonna need them to turn out when we have people out or we have big events that need a lot of hands, in a major fire. We're still gonna need a force of volunteers. We won't need them every overnight like we do now. And the way this looks in 3 or 4 years is those folks are just getting an hourly wage, just like anybody else. And not, the stipend concept goes away. That's the,
So we're looking to be paying the volunteers an hourly wage as well.
yes, they're already getting paid.
They're already getting paid the stipend?
Right.
They're already getting paid an hourly?
They're not getting paid an hourly now, right, so yeah.
That's what a lot of towns have been doing for quite a while. Newmarket has, I know.
Yeah,
Chris, this move to full-time fire stuff, what's the impetus, is this something that's driven by the insurance companies? Do they like to see this?
no, there's, it's, call volume and off hours, the need for, firefighter EMTs, and medical calls are what's driving the call changes.
Does the fire department handle our ambulance service then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And you said those,
I know there was
those-
talk of getting a second ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
said those calls were increasing.
Yep.
Is there a way, because a lot of the increases in medical calls, is there a way to hire a dedicated ambulance people? Is that,
You can, you could contract out the whole ambulance operation. Basically, you would agree to call company X, and they would bill for their services. It's like Raymond does, I don't know, Raymond is a bad example, Epping does that, a lot of towns do it. You contract it out to a for-profit operation. We could do that. This is a conversation you should have with the chief, because I'm gonna misstep somewhere, but globally, a couple things are gonna happen. One is response times are gonna go down quite a bit, because wherever that ambulance is coming from is coming, it's not Nottingham.
response times are gonna go up, you mean?
Oh, yeah, what'd I say?
You said down.
Oh, yeah, no, they're gonna go up, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
See, I told you should talk to the chief. The need for, sometimes in a lot of those situations, the need is not just an ambulance driver. There's another situation, you need more hands, you need more other skills, that's why you see firefighters and EMTs going together to things. You're still gonna need to send a rescue unit of some sort to be the first one to get there. If it's not gonna be a police officer, you're gonna see a utility truck or something with an AED and that flash response. You're still gonna need that while you're waiting for the ambulance to arrive, so,
And all our full-time firefighters are EMTs as well, correct?
yes, right, that's, so leading to, the main benefit we get from staffing the ambulance, we take all the revenue.
Do we have paramedic as well?
No, we don't have paramedics, we have EMTs, EMTs and advanced EMTs, mix. And having firefighter EMTs on the staff means that we have people in the barn ready to respond to the full breadth of whatever call comes in. So your response times are as good as they can be for every flavor of call, where if you split it up, you lose all of those efficiencies. So,
But you could potentially get a paramedic, be on call with the ambulance.
yeah, if you privatize the thing, you'd have a different arrangement for getting paramedics, but we have access to paramedics through Exeter Hospital and McGregor. Chief, I'm sorry if I'm screwing this up, but I know those two, and that really wouldn't change dramatically,
Yeah, Exeter Hospital comes out.
yeah. Depending on where in town it is, I think they're zoned for,
And they frequently leave, the ambulance leaves and sometimes meets up with the paramedic.
That's correct.
And they join. I was an EMT for a while in Nottingham, and I know we did that.
yep. Yeah, the paramedic will leave their car on the side of the road, jump in the ambulance, there's.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
So nobody has to sit at the fire, or wait or go, or they connect.
yeah,
And it's a pretty smooth operation.
yeah. Whenever the ambulance rolls, gotta have 2 licensed people on it, so we always have to have 2 licensed people, to really get the benefit of having an ambulance this close. Otherwise, you're waiting for somebody who's licensed to drive from home to the station and then to the site. So the one thing that we've seen, and the chief can detail this for you better, but as we've moved from, as we've added per diem people in the evenings, our response times globally are going down. Not surprisingly, when you have people in the station waiting for the phone to ring, response times are dramatically different than waiting for somebody to get out of bed, go to the station, get the truck and go, so.
Just a general comment
Yeah,
on fire department. So when I look at the salaries, they're basically going up 27K, taking out the fire chief's 11,000. I'm sorry. 37,000. And so therefore, there's like 24K in other. Maybe the fire chief could look at that and see if there's some way we can cut some of those other cost increases.
You looking at other line items?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not gonna dictate which one.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that maybe.
yeah, there are some of these costs that kind of come along with additional people, right? You gotta fit them out and all those kinds of things. That is, and I'll leave that detailed explanation to him, but for the most, that's really what's driving across the board is these increases, is that change in the staffing model. He's got a couple of licensed software things that are getting more expensive. Some of his equipment stuff, inflation's hitting him on a few things, but, really, it's the personnel change that's gonna drive this.
I can see the ones that are trivial.
Yeah,
If we don't end up getting the personnel like in a timely manner, just because of, we're not finding anybody, and depending on what the stipend is for the call center, the volunteers, would it make sense to increase that 40? Just to offset, you know, they're gonna be going out more if we don't have a fourth and fifth person on the fire department, like, I hate to talk
Yeah,
about
I don't think anybody would
it,
turn
but I
that
mean,
down,
In reality, if they're all going out more often because calls are growing up and they're not employing
yep.
what they hope to, you know, maybe we could get more volunteers than just 6 that are coming out all the time.
Well, that's the hard part.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, here I go again, talking where the chief should be talking. I don't think money is that big a driving factor for the people that are getting up in the middle of the night to do this. They need to we need to compensate them for their time, and we need to
Right.
show some appreciation for it and make it worth it for them. It's never gonna pay enough to make somebody get out of bed and do
Yeah,
that.
I guess
That's,
it's just
they're
the
they're
thought.
motivated by something other than
You're
money,
right,
and
it's, yeah, it's rewarding for them.
Right,
which is
it's,
I'm not gonna say that.
very much appreciated.
yeah.
So, I'm not gonna say don't,
Right,
Fair, yeah.
don't, you know, yeah, absolutely, whatever they're doing is worth whatever
Gonna pay
however
them
we're counting, absolutely.
To help us out. So hopefully we're not
But
in
I
that
wouldn't
situation.
wanna say that that's a panacea for the global, you know,
Okay,
problem that we've got. Yeah, and whether we can get there this year, you know, the board's gonna talk about this, I think, and, you know, can we pull this off this year? We don't know yet, it's a big number. It spills over into the retirement lines and all that, so it would be an increase this year and an increase next year to go from a part of a year to a full year.
It's gonna be a bigger increase next year.
I mean, the talk of like, we can't afford it this year, so it's gonna be like halfway through the year, and then the other half increase into the next year's budget. You can't really spread it across 2 years, cause it's not a purchase, it's an ongoing expense, so whether we can afford it or we can't,
Yeah,
it just kinda hides the increase over 2 years.
right, it doesn't change the outcome, it just softens the blow in financial terms, but, yeah, it doesn't, it's an all or nothing thing.
yeah.
It's not like, well, we could add 1 this year, add 1 the year after, to 1 year after that. You've gotta go 3 to 6 and hope that you can staff it all, because, you can't schedule without, you know, just to run the labor schedule, you gotta
You
have.
gotta
the full-
make the decision off the double number, not just the half number that's on here.
Yeah,
The radio maintenance stuff in 218, is that just always underspent? And if it is, why does it have to go up? Or is there a particular radio maintenance?
I bet some of it is that there's more people to put radios on, but, I'll flush that one out with him, or if you wanna talk to him, you can, but I'll flag that one for more detail.
Telephone stuff, are they moving to VoIP too?
Yeah, the telephone lines I'm having a heck of a time with those. Yeah, it's moving to VoIP. Most of what you see here under telephone is cell phones, and internet now covers the VoIP, and, the billing gets sucked in there. We're still not doing a great job of showing that, though, cause it's one vendor across a bunch of different buildings, and we're just struggling with the bookkeeping of it. I don't think we're spending more overall, it's just harder to track it all. All right, anything else you wanna talk on fire? BI is building inspector. No big changes there, he's busy, but, sufficient.
So part-time salary goes up because more hours?
Hourly wage increase will do that. One that, a wage increase that kicked in this year will show up as an increase for the full year. Yep. Hours bounce around a little bit, but are generally pretty consistent. He's taken on a couple extra things lately that'll probably cost a
Offset
few
by
hours.
fees, right? Usually.
Yeah, we haven't bumped our permit fees in a few years, but generally speaking, the idea with permits, building permits, is that you cover the cost of doing this. EM is emergency management. Fire chief's now the emergency management director, if you didn't know that. Used to be the retired police chief was the emergency management director. The board stuck that with the fire chief this year. All right, he volunteered, that's right. Highway. Highway proposes a new position. We've got a hybrid concept. It's all showing up here, but the idea is that we would hire somebody to do work for Public Works, meaning highway, and occasionally the recycling center, and also for Parks and Rec. With more and more outdoor space to take care of, we're struggling to, take care of the fields here, get the trash taken out. The beach needs a lot of attention. Marston's coming online. We're gonna have to manage a irrigation system. We just don't have somebody on the staff to do that kind of stuff. It'd be great to have somebody to plug in at recycling, and if we found somebody that could plow, then we could have a kind of year-round perfect scenario, if this person exists. But the Public Works Director and the Parks and Rec Director have got a long list of things that they could be working on, if we just had somebody that could do it. That is the vast majority of the change here. Otherwise, the staffing model stays the same.
Again, the only thing I struggle with is the overtime line item and the part-time. The budget this year is $339,000. Between the three line items last year was $289. So, and the majority of that is the full-time, one hire. I keep thinking to myself, if you're hiring a full-time person, you should be reducing part-time hires.
Or overtime. for
That's what
sure.
justified the hire in the first place.
Right.
Yep, overtime for highway, overtime comes almost exclusively in storm response. There's very little overtime that happens outside of storms.
But again, that full-time will be.
If we picked up another,
Well, it's two different skills though, what you're talking
That's
about,
what they
right? If
just
you're
spent
talking
yeah,
about-
if it's somebody that can plow, then this conversation can go somewhere, yeah. If,
Have an extra plow laying around?
Yeah, for the,
we've got, no, sort of. Depends on what's coming later with the truck purchases. Yeah, they kind of go together. Over time, I think you would see that. You'd see a less dependence on, one thing we have struggled with is finding part-time plow. People just wanna plow in our trucks. They don't exist. That's,
They can't use their own.
we hire people with their own
setup.
trucks. That's hired equipment plowing, line 258.
Oh, okay.
But, we don't have, right now, we don't have anybody,
It's so low,
Right, cause last year there wasn't that much snow.
right.
he may have somebody that's gonna drive one of our, he's got somebody right now that's gonna drive one of our trucks this winter.
No, you don't, you can't.
Didn't have one last year. But over time, I think you're right.
So again, though, if you have that line item 258, which is contractor services for snow plowing,
Yep.
then those three line items up above don't really have anything to do with snow plowing, do they? The overtime?
No, cause
Wouldn't that be for other functions? If they are, what are the functions that they?
the town still snowplows. It's just they have additional people.
Yeah, I think I lost you there. We use both
I wish I had a better
Contracted.
breakout of how we're spending our time in the highway department. Right now, I can
Okay,
sit
you
and
wanna
say-
see like,
Yeah.
how many hours per storm response kind of thing, or?
Not per storm, but, you know, if you have data that says for snow plowing for the year, between whatever line items, this is how much money we spent.
It's just so different because you can't predict the weather and,
I'm not saying predict it, I'm just saying, look at the history.
right.
You know, from last year, you can't predict how many storms you're gonna have, but at least it gives me a sense of what's generating the overtime in 255 and 256.
So what do you?
Okay.
That's where I wanna know where the money's going.
Okay, so I can, without the data, I can tell you that almost all of 255 is storm response. All of our permanent, full-time highway of 4, plus the director, 4 permanent or full-time highway employees. They all plow snow.
So 2 years ago, we had very little snow, I guess.
Last year we had very little snow.
Well, 2 years ago, it said 75, 95.
Yeah, 2 different winters with each fiscal year, so that's a little, you know,
Yeah.
you're looking at the year-to-date this year is January through April of '21. It doesn't have December of '21 yet. So not a full, we didn't get a Halloween storm this year and all that, so, anyway,
We won't know till it's done.
the salary full-time overtime line is almost exclusively storm response. And the 258 hired equipment plowing is exclusively storm response. We don't have anything else in that line, so.
That one's easiest.
And all winter, our full-time staff are, they work their 40 hours, and a lot of that ends up being plowing too.
Right. And if it's regular hours and they have to plow, that's what they're doing.
Yeah, if it's between, 7 and 3 and it's snowing, then they're just driving and, they're,
They're doing that instead of something else.
yeah,
So how many full-time do we have now?
4. And they're all back. One's been out on medical for 6 months.
So you're saying that for $313,000, that's only 4 people?
That's 5 people with the Public Works Director
And that's reflecting the, added.
and an added employee. Yeah,
4 to 6.
But for the added employee, did you put it all into people, right, between all
it's all in 254 right now.
of them?
So the 313 represents 6 people.
Yes,
But that's only, right, so the new person isn't full year.
Not here yet.
we, over time, we'll end up spreading that over multiple departments probably. We didn't do that here just because we're, here's the number.
No, that's not, sorry. I meant that that person isn't hired yet, so it's not, it wouldn't take, I assume you wouldn't hire before.
Oh, January 1st?
Right, or
Yeah,
whatever,
no, we
before,
would-
before March, before town meeting. You probably wouldn't hire until after town meeting,
Right.
so maybe like 9 months or whatever.
Yeah, I'll have to double check with Sean on what, he would have put a buffer like that in there. I don't know which, what kind of lag he put in for that, but, yeah.
Chris,
And-
is that,
Oh, sorry, and, I mean, I guess it depends on the work that's actually done, but, I mean, I guess, in my mind, like, doing, like, the mowings and stuff or whatever at Marston and things like that, park and rec stuff, really falls under highway management, I guess, probably more so than.
Don't forget it's Public Works, right?
Right, it's public works, yeah, that's kind of why.
And
you
recycling
know,
and
right,
Parks and
that-
Recs, like the catch-all for maintenance
Yeah,
or
I
upkeep.
guess, it's, right, it's public works.
Right.
I mean, the thing with the plowing too is, again, you gotta remember how big Nottingham is.
Yeah,
Right? And if we've got 4 full-time people at the highway department, they're not gonna cover the whole town
No.
plowing. It's just not gonna happen.
I'm just trying to learn more about how the department works and.
Yeah, all fair questions,
Look at
yeah.
numbers, but not understand what makes up the numbers.
For sure.
I have a question on, so that salary, does that include the health insurance numbers, or is that separate
No.
item 86?
Yeah, that's up in the personnel administration section, yeah.
Okay.
Just wages here.
Wages, and then, yeah, and then so that item 86, the health insurance, life insurance, et cetera, that's for all.
All employees, all lumped in together, yeah. And those, right now, the numbers that you see in those budgeted amounts reflect these new positions. So those head counts are reflected. If we change anything through this process, all of those lines will change.
That's just the formula, not.
Yes. All right, you wanna keep going? Anything
Yeah.
else you wanna, let's see. Where was I? Oh, mowing, you see, we've really started to put some effort into Japanese knotweed this year. Had to cut down a bunch of, ash trees this year. That's gonna continue to be a chase where the ash borers,
You can see them all along the roads where the trees are blonding, yeah, they didn't.
yep. And those aren't just, oh, well, it's dead, it'll fall over someday. It's a more imminent threat to the roadway, so, I think it was, Jabig and Lucas Pond that we spent a lot of time on this year. There was a whole bunch that, had to come down. Unfortunately, I think that's gonna keep being a thing. You see, he's asking for more for, sand, gravel, and stone. That is both price increases and continued increase in the amount that we're putting down. We're trying to we picked up 8 miles of new dirt roads this year, that are now town roads. We're trying to treat them like town roads, not as driveways. We're trying to fix them up while we're working on them so that we don't have to keep going back, putting more material on them, putting better material on them.
Those are 8 new miles of dirt road, you said?
Yep. We were always plowing them, but we weren't always doing much else to them,
That's about it.
so, a little
How much
Band-Aids
of
here
the-
and there.
How much of the increase is due to the new roads?
I don't know if we've got good data on that. We are trying to, it's taken more of our attention. They're trying to not go back and put Band-Aids. I'd let Sean give you that estimate. I don't wanna pull a number out on that one.
So it wasn't true what people said about it wasn't gonna cost the town extra money, cause
Right.
they were already plowing them and maintaining them?
That was their argument though,
Yeah.
right? When we were pushing back on it?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing the right thing now.
Well, we have to now.
Give him what he's got, but, I
Snowed the
mean,
way out of it.
Right.
he is doing the right things in terms of putting the right materials down and thinking long-term versus short-term.
I'm just interested in
Yeah,
getting a number.
yeah, no, I know.
I guess my question would be, based on this conversation, we've gone up 41,000 this year. I understand part of it's due to the salt price increase, but are we gonna continue to see that number at 103,000? Or is that gonna continue to go up as we do more for the 8 miles of?
Well, we don't put salt on those.
Right.
Cause they're dirt, yeah.
I didn't mean that. I'm talking,
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the salt, I'm talking about all
Sand
the
and
other.
gravel, okay.
Globally,
Because we don't know out of the 41,000, how much of that is going to these new roads,
almost none of it, because they're all gravel and we don't salt gravel roads.
but you put stone.
We put stone on them, yes, yeah.
And what, you
Yeah.
don't just put stone down, you grade them, there's a lot
Wonder
more
how
to
much
that.
it costs
Yep.
per mile.
Yeah, so we're mixing stone with sand for gravel road treatment in the winter, and we're salting the asphalt roads in the winter, so, much of this is the increase in the price of salt. Some of it is the cost of the, and the stone that we mix in with the sand, we would have done that regardless of the legal status of those roads. That's just a change in approach. That's not driven by the change in mileage. It just works better. And so that's why he's doing that. That has nothing to do with.
Are we still able to get stuff from the town pit, or?
Yeah, we get sand from the pit, but we don't use that, we use that for treatment in the storms. We don't use it anywhere near as much for repairing the gravel roads. We're using a bigger, coarser
Because it's-
stone.
It's too fine or whatever?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if we were, you know, I thought that the pit was getting kind of low or whatever, or we weren't getting as fine a material out of there as.
We're getting less material. We are choosing to use less material, both, and buying different material that works better.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, you should talk to him and not to me, because that's the extent of my understanding of it. And another big jump in engineering, we're running into things, this is more driven by the new roads. We're finding situations where we need engineering help, that we didn't need in the past, because we didn't put the level of care into what we were doing. Particularly around the lake where the drainage is really tricky. The environmental consequences are much greater for your decisions and what you do, and the permitting requirements in some cases are new. We have to permit and get things designed to do them right. Right now we're working on Highland Ave. There's a drainage structure there that we bought with the road that dumps into the lake. It's not working, the roads are it was washing out. And in order to fix it so that we're not going back and dumping material on it that just washes into the lake every major event, we've got to engineer and rebuild that drainage system.
Is that survey helping?
Survey that we paid for a couple years ago?
The survey of all the culverts and things is underway right now. Most of the survey work is done. And so we're not seeing the benefit of it yet. They just, this season's finished the measuring and the counting of all those things. So that will help in the long run. It'll help us plan better, what's coming.
Prioritize what needs
Yep.
to be done first.
Whereas engineering costs.
No, those are, I think, until we really get our head around the new mileage, I think we're gonna have a few years of this.
We don't know what we don't know yet.
Yeah.
So you haven't done it.
Like with Highland Ave was just the first one that came onto our radar because there was an event there that really washed out the road. In responding to that, or around the same time, we learned that there are water pipes in the road that we didn't know about, this catch basin that we didn't know about. We just find things and gotta work with it. So hopefully every new road, we don't have those situations. That's not the pattern, but we just don't know what we don't know yet. And trying to do it right. Anyone else on this stuff? Contracted road maintenance, same as usual. This is asphalt overlay and asphalt road repair. Same thing we've always done. When we start talking about warrant articles, we're gonna talk about a little pivot on our long-term planning around bridges and things, but this work continues at about this pace. We've got it mapped out, and we think we can keep pace with our asphalt road maintenance at around this price for the foreseeable future.
How much is asphalt going up?
This year, there wasn't a big spike this year. I don't remember the per ton cost. That can swing with the price of oil.
Yeah.
And it's up.
And it's up now. It was up, and now it's down a little bit. And,
Yeah, but it's still,
it's up generally. We will respond to that if it comes. If that starts to impact what we're doing, we'll just do less. That's we have the ability to, shorten up what we do or change methods or whatever. That this is we have some flexibility there, both in the bidding and contracting and in the field. Solid waste disposal is all driven by, volume and pricing. We will refine this number when we get a full year underneath our belt, but it's not gonna be dramatically different than this in the end. Our tonnage continues to go up, the price to dispose of everything continues to go up. Where we're seeing it most recently is the trucking costs for the disposal. We have to ship, we have to truck everything everywhere. The trucking cost is what's driving the costs up for us more than anything right now. The main solid waste contract with Waste Management, everything you throw in the hopper that gets buried in the turnkey landfill, that price goes up 3% every year. That weight goes up a percentage point or so every year. Most of the pain is from that volume, as well as the volume of bulky waste, construction demo debris.
There was a
So
lot
with
last
those tonnages going up on those bulky waste and devo and debris type bins, with that continuing to go up, why are we seeing signs there that say we can't pick? Cause I know I pull hundreds of pounds of stuff out of the dumpsters and take them home instead of purchasing new materials. And the last few times I've been there, I've been yelled at.
Safety.
They can't monitor, they can't be someone there all the time.
But it could be pick at your own risk
Yeah,
the way it always
that's
is.
True.
It will be until somebody sues us, yeah. Yeah, we're genuinely concerned about safety, people climbing in those things. Yeah.
I've never climbed all the way in, but
But I think
You
other
never know
people,
what's
I think other
People
people
do,
would, other
but-
people would and probably have, yeah.
yeah, but I mean, if you put up signs that say it's at your own risk, I just feel like if we're supposed to reduce, reuse, and recycle, that's really, I pull a lot of stuff out, I've seen a lot of other people pick, there's tons of really good stuff that just gets otherwise tossed. And not just tossed, but paying to throw it out, when it could
And-
be reused and save people
I was
town
just
money.
wondered why, I know the shed that they were getting was out of control, and then it seemed like there was a fairly decent system of things that were just left there.
Yeah, I thought
And
so
then at
too.
the end of the day, or the end of 2 or 3 days, the people threw them out, and I know I got stuff out of that was left. I saw, I put something down and somebody said, oh my goodness, and picked it back up.
Yeah.
Good
And
stuff doesn't
that-
stay
and
long.
Yeah.
There's just this huge amount of waste going on because there is no recycling
you gotta-
whatsoever.
You gotta hang out there and wait for somebody to drive up, that way it doesn't go in, and that way you're reducing, reusing, and recycling, but you're spending your day at the recycling center.
Yeah.
I think that's what was something that somebody
It's-
said, well, why don't you
And a lot of, most towns
stay and
do have
monitor
that.
it then to make sure that.
Lockwood has has the whole little recycle shed that we used to have,
Yeah.
and somehow it works, and I know for, I don't know how many years, we had the shed, it was not right out front, but it was in the, and it just was there.
I think
Yeah,
there's some effort in
it
cleaning it
would.
up. and-
There is,
Sure.
and
Right.
that's the problem, right? And so I was on the board when we decided to, for lack of a better way of saying it, to close it down. And it's because it just gets out of control, right? And the staff that's there has enough to do. And people were leaving stuff there that nobody wanted.
Right, I
And-
get the, I get the, I get
and-
the, I get the
and- can I
closing
finish?
the shed, I
Can I-
get that. I just am concerned about, it just seemed like a nice little solution was the spot where people put things and then people, they all got thrown out at the end of the day anyway. But there was that much more recycling going on, really recycling going on, and stuff we weren't paying to carry away too.
Yeah, but again, it was, people were leaving stuff. The area was getting out of control, right? We asked repeatedly for people who wanted to come forward and volunteer, like you,
Right, that's what I heard on
and
Facebook. people's
nobody came
windows.
forward.
What we need is a shed that you can pick up with the forklift and dump the whole shed right into the dumpster at the end of the
That's
weekend.
an excellent idea.
Can you build that for us? We'll let you pick the stuff out if you wanted to build it with.
First-
if
You might
you
have
want.
a
You get
deal.
first dibs. Get
Right,
first
build
dibs.
it out of the scrap metal
Yeah.
bin.
Right.
Has the town ever entertained the idea of trash pickup? I mean, Brentwood does it 100%.
The waste management.
Before my time,
Everybody who wants trash pickup just pays for it themselves. It's
Yeah.
a good
No, but
solution for
Brentwood
the
is done
town.
by the town. They don't have a recycling
was
center.
Where they-
Well, I
where
mean,
they-
in this town,
where they
the
move
people that
somewhere
want
else.
trash pickup just
Yeah.
pay for it, and that's nice, cause it takes load off the town.
Well, that's the other question I wonder is what percent of the town is actually using the recycling
I
center?
don't know.
I live
Yeah,
in
we
Mount
don't-
Vernon Estates, and most of the people have their,
Yeah, we don't have good data on it. We know how many stickers we give out, but that doesn't actually tell you how many people are really using it. Yeah, we don't have good data on that.
Yeah, I take my used motor oil there, but I pay to get rid of my trash privately.
they what?
Yeah.
A lot of people
It's
do
easier.
both because Trash Busters doesn't recycle, so
Right.
a lot of people pay Trash Busters for the trash and take their stuff back.
Yep,
Well, that's good, we get the revenue,
yeah.
selling the
And you don't have
materials,
to go to
the ones that are
because
still
you don't
sellable.
have free
Yeah, I mean, better that it gets recycled than it gets thrown in the landfill.
Yeah, most
We're
stuff's
not
making
printing money with our,
Right.
by the time you get done processing it all, it's not a moneymaker, but,
They always have way more recycling than trash.
Especially when you store it or recycle it longer. If you
Yes,
do it
it
all,
does,
you have to
the
go to-
recycling doesn't smell.
Yeah.
They also give really good service, Trash Busters, so people are happy to use them because they give good service.
all right, well, we didn't solve that big problem.
It's for next time.
But, yeah, let's see, moving along, we're getting into the routine, really routine stuff now. GA's general assistance, we've started, one thing that's new this year, we started, paying for, we have some families that need help paying for summer camp. We used to just kind of bury that cost and lay it on the program within the rec. Which by default means that everybody that participates in the program pays for the people that can't afford to. So we've shifted that cost to make a scholarship program for the kids that need help paying for summer camp, and we're just reflecting that here.
How many kids is that about?
What's that?
How many kids is that service about?
How many kids? I think it was 6 families this year, give or take. And we run them through our local welfare option to make sure they're getting the services they get out in the world and make sure there's a genuine need there. And kind of took our rec people out of the welfare business. Did that at a time, this is, I've never seen this before, the year's not over, but we haven't spent any money on welfare needs this year at all.
Amazing.
Weird.
No requests, huh?
Yeah, well, we've had a few applications for help, and our coordinator has found them whatever, help whatever they
Resources.
needed. It's,
There's a lot of COVID money supporting, like, rec assistance and that type of thing.
yeah, right, there's a lot of money sloshing around in other places, which is probably helping us, and, thankfully, things like employment's very high, and Nottingham doesn't have a big population of people that are on the edge like that, so, great, it's good for them, good for us. Our social service agency requests, I admittedly have to go back and make one more pass through this with the welfare director. We've been very consistent with this, and we just check in and make sure that we're still getting some services from them, or she knows she can get them if we need them. That's kind of the deal that we have, where we don't pay for a lot. We support these organizations each year, and they help us in those rare cases when we need it. On to rec. The biggest change here is Marston. Marston's coming online. They started using it this fall for flag football. The rest of the build-out will be done to get it ready for other stuff by spring. And we need to start mowing it more regularly, more frequently. We knew this was coming. Surprised we haven't got to this point already. Right. And a few pieces of small equipment And then on line 339, Courtney's proposing that we put a gate in at the beach that is automatic. If you're familiar with the beach, it's the big swing arm, steel gate. We actually have somebody that lives across the street from that gate and goes over in the morning and unlocks it and goes back in the evening and locks it 7 days a week, all
Is that
summer.
gate attendant, the thing that I'm seeing on here?
Yes, the gate, yes, there, and we give them a couple of bucks to do that for us. That arrangement is not gonna last forever. It's worked out great for us, but nobody else lives over there. Nobody's got that kind of schedule that can do that for us. We're gonna eventually have to find another solution, because we don't have employees here.
How much does that cost a year?
$1,000?
Oh, you
Or
can
less.
get a gate opener, mine costs like
Hey, I
six
live up the road,
hundred.
pay my son to go down and do it.
Okay, we're gonna talk afterward,
Right.
but,
Actually, I'm
He has to commit
Yeah.
to every day, every
That's the thing.
morning, every
Yeah.
night.
pretty good, he does chores for our neighbor's horses, so it.
yeah.
No soccer games, no nothing. He
Yeah.
has to be-
She runs a hard bargain here,
I
jeez.
said it kind of tongue in cheek, but I mean,
Do they have to go down and make sure that no one's in there
No
getting locked
girlfriend on
in?
the side either.
They lock them in, and that was what they talked about last time.
And that's an event, a couple times a year, that's a
Yeah.
thing.
Say they could extend the hours.
So if you get an automatic opener, you could potentially solve that problem too.
Well,
It would only open going in, it wouldn't open.
yeah, you could probably set it up so that it would let people out after you, but we don't want people in there
After hours.
after
no.
hours,
Yeah,
so,
what happens if they get locked in?
They call the police, and the police call the person, and the person goes in.
police can open the gate too,
Well,
but,
it's good to
no,
make
no,
it a
they
big
call a
ordeal
friend,
so
they
they
call a
won't do
friend
it
and cut
again.
the lock. That's,
That's what they'll do.
Yeah,
They'll
they'll-
cut the lock to get out.
they'll,
Should do this call.
Yes.
yeah, that's not actually what happens, but, anyway,
That's good too.
yeah, so that was a great solution for half a generation, but we're gonna have to do something different. Do we have to do it right away? We'll see, but we're
It's a good
gonna need
idea
to do
though.
something.
And then have a backup person in case, there's a time you can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, the only people that are working at both of those times are police officers, for sure. And you can't pull a cop off to go.
Right, right.
From-
That's just
from a duty
You
to-
don't
yeah.
Bad
want
use of
them
a cop.
tied to you have to go open this gate when they're in the middle of some other call.
Right, so,
And you know,
911, hold on.
Right, yeah, the gate's not open. Well, the policeman is responding to
Yeah.
an emergency.
right. All right, library, I don't wanna speak too much for the library. The library has proposed moving one of their, I think it's assistant director, but a nearly full-time, part-time person to full-time with full-time benefits. So this reflects that change, and you can see the note there from the library trustees about what the financial impact of that is. There's also a health benefit, and, that's all calculated and shown up in that other line as well. That's part of it, yeah. And they need to have somebody else at a supervisory level other than just the one director that, can act as a supervisor, so. And then the line 346 is the appropriation that the town just kind of hands to the library trustees, and they manage that money throughout the year on whatever they find appropriate. So,
Going back to the rec department, I think when if she comes to talk with the department heads, we can speak to this, see whether like in after school care and summer, are they like fully self-sustaining? I know the departments are running.
yeah, the cost for those, they're self-sustaining because they're limited, they will limit the size if they have to. So we're not subsidizing those with these funds. Those are all pretty well segregated.
I guess is it just leaving a revolving fund or are they like?
It's, the revolving fund took a hit during COVID, but is now stable. But ask Courtney to talk through that. After school, staffing is killing them. It's really hard to find people to staff that slot. They're looking ahead to summer camp and
trying to think through how to staff that. They'll be communicating with parents next month about some changes coming to that. One of them is very likely to be that we're gonna be Nottingham kids only. That's gonna be the first thing, we just can't stretch and staff that. And she's got some other stuff going, but, it's challenging. But, and prices are going up, you know, and so to find people at the bottom of the wage scale is really tough right now.
And they're with their kids all day, so we want reliable, dependable people too.
Yeah. So there is your first draft operating budget, and as we opened with, too big an increase for the year.
The select board has some big decisions to make, because if you go by this line by line, you can say, you know, every line makes sense, right? So we've got some big decisions to make.
Question, I'm new to the budget committee here, it's just like a general understanding, like, I feel like our town is growing more and more every year. I understand we wanna do a little more and we take on a little more, but I feel like raising taxes is kind of I don't wanna say unfair, but, you know, every year we get whacked with a higher tax bill. And I mean, you guys do a great job, I don't envy your position, I don't have any simple answers, but it's like, how do we get more income from maybe the agents that are creating this change? Cause I think I just heard a 26 lot development, someone wants to put in a 26 lot development. I don't know if that's hearsay or not, but it's like, our roads are getting used more, the town beach is busier, we got problems with the recycling center. We're carrying the burden for that, which is a lovely place to live. I don't wanna complain, but are there other avenues for income to help keep our tax burden down? Are there other ways to go about this rather than like, well, we just gotta, you know, bump up taxes by another chunk of percentages and it's like, I know, I just kinda throw it out there, is
There are
that,
impact fees with with the developments usually.
where do those impact fees actually end up though? Cause they don't,
No, they don't offset over time.
They're very restricted.
Yeah.
yeah, cause I don't see the impact
That's
fees
why-
going to
I don't
hire
know.
new people.
I think there are some uses that we could add to the potential. I know for the school, we almost can never use.
Right, yeah, that's part of the problem with them, they expire after a certain period of time and they have to be returned. But they can be used, you know, yeah, I don't even remember specifically, but,
They're supposed to only be used for things that are a direct result of the increase.
right, so
You know,
like,
the added impact.
But
the school
all
edition.
that is the added impact that we're paying
It's
for. I
all
mean,
of- all of
when
this
families
here.
are moving in, that is the added
Well,
impact.
theoretically, if you had 26 new houses, say, next year, that's 26 times whatever their tax bill is, as revenue, to offset our expenses too, so.
But it doesn't work that way.
Usually,
Well,
that's
I mean-
never enough.
No.
The other answers are increase the tax base. Fine, you know,
Which is what development does as well.
Right.
right, there's a different flavor, but increase the tax base with things that don't add a service burden. It's hard to
What
do.
are we doing with,
Commercial properties?
Yeah, but they're perceived to produce less of a service burden.
It's different services.
It's
Just different services. They
Right.
don't produce school kids, but they produce police and fire calls or whatever, you know, there's no free lunch, but,
Yeah.
Well, the
Yeah.
cost of the police in here, this is $113 per person in
Not
town per
breaking the
year,
bank.
which is a great deal for protection. And the school is, let's face it, the school is 78% of our tax bill, so that's really where you gotta look when you talk about the increases in cost. I mean, the town is incredibly well run. I mean, this is a big budget increase, but to a small budget, and you haven't really had a big increase in years, so
And with those new
compared
developments,
to
they should
7-8%.
can you say that? That was
for
Tom
household
Buck?
Yeah.
would not be
Well, it's
I'm
nice
just
you
kidding
come in,
you.
you bring your budget in after the school comes in.
Yeah, well,
But, yeah, no, I mean, you either have to increase revenue or ask for voluntary donations.
It's-
I
and
tried to
it's-
work with the library to get them set up to be able to do a GoFundMe, and they don't really have any interest in trying to ask for funds voluntarily. They have a Friends of the Library charity account, nonprofit, but they specifically use the money that gets donated to that to pay for things that they are unable to get the taxpayers to pay for. When I tried to get them to set up the GoFundMe stuff, they didn't think that they could use GoFundMe as a government entity, and I went with GoFundMe, and I said that they could, but they never really, the trustees have no desire to do it. Likewise, the school has no desire to chase revenue. You know, they could potentially ask parents to pay tuition. There's a large portion of families in Nottingham that make over $200,000 a year, and you can request they pay tuition, but no one wants to even try requesting. Not that you can legally collect on it, but just musing since you asked.
Right.
Yeah, I just,
You can, globally, you can increase the tax base. You can start charging fees for things that are, you know, like user fees, so that they're the cost is directed to the person that's consuming it. You can
That's a
deliver.
tax in another by another name.
Right.
Yeah, it's just a different flavor of tax.
Tax by
It's-
another
yeah.
name, that's all that is.
Or you can deliver different or fewer
Go for
services.
the
But-
dump for free, or
That's a-
you can pay.
that's
for
a way
That
to-
way,
bag.
you're paying for the
So what difference
services,
does
like,
that make?
he doesn't have kids and he's paying, you know what I mean, like, it's,
So your tax, the house, your
either
house
way,
tax bill goes down,
someone's gotta
but
pay
your,
for it.
yeah,
and you can't even write that on your income tax, so,
yeah, no, it's a catch-22.
Is that all we have for
Sure.
Chris?
yeah.
How you doing with those minutes?
I like what we, what, is there an idea?
I think so.
of-
You don't have to
Sit it out,
capture
sit it
everything.
out?
I appreciate your time, Chris, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way too much. Who's running this meeting? Oh, I'm sorry.
Does anybody have any other questions for Chris? I know we went over a lot, but hopefully some of the questions we asked him, the other town department heads will be able to, ask.
You have like a
We'll be able to
goal?
ask them once
you wanna
we
get
meet
to?
with them.
Just roughly?
Do what?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you have a goal percent number that you're thinking about as being reasonable, or,
We have not talked about a specific number.
okay.
We've all just agreed that 9 is too much.
Great.
Sounds good.
Yeah, on the bright side, we are gonna see some revenue increases that will offset, you know, granted, it's just different taxes, different labels, but it's, it is probably 150,000 more in revenue. Big increase in the rooms and meals tax sharing out of Concord will help us, and, which helped us this year. We've already enjoyed some of that, and motor vehicle registrations continue to climb. So that bottom line of 400 or whatever thousand increase will feel a little smaller. Granted,
Once all those are in.
it doesn't change the question on the ballot, so it may not matter, but
I thought one of those taxes went down, rooms and meals. one of
the highway sharing went down, rooms and meals, the rate went
them. The
down.
rate went down.
The sharing ratio changed, the formula changed.
Okay, even better. The rate goes down, the ratio comes up, better yet.
Yeah, so more in rooms and meals, less in highway, but the net is bigger from Concord on the town side. It's all dwarfed by whatever they do with the education tax, but I don't know.
How much do we get from the lottery? They've got a big TV and campaign now going about how much they pay for
That's
each month.
school,
Don't do it.
school gets something,
Yeah, something, and that's about it, right? No-
you know,
Carol?
I don't even know if that's still, it was Keno money for kindergarten, I don't know if that's still how that.
I mean, it's such a misleading ad. There's 2 billion, and then they do say it's since 1964, and you figure out how many kids there are in the state since 1964. That's not very much money per kid.
Go figure an ad being misleading.
Yeah, well,
All right.
So there was some specific questions here that I know you guys want answers for, but aside from that, what are you guys looking for? in terms of next steps?
Next steps,
You got department heads coming next week,
let's see.
that right?
Today's the 7th.
16th?
14th, 16th.
yeah, that's what we have
Department's
scheduled
head
for.
Yeah.
on the 16th, that's a Thursday. I'm hoping Chris will go back and just let him know some of the questions we have. I wrote down some of the questions that some of the other committee members are, asking. So probably just to review and ask the specific department heads on,
Who all is coming in? Is it rec, fire, police, highway?
Yeah, I've told them I'll be prepared to be here. If there's anybody you don't wanna bring in, I can tell them, but those four,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the vast majority of the town side. If you want library,
Police,
Library
is asking for-
we'd have to tell them. But that's the bulk of,
do you want library to come? They're
What's
asking
the-
for another full-time, I mean,
They're
they're
coming
asking
in
for
what
that.
day?
yeah,
For a full-time
14th?
person.
pardon me?
They're coming in when?
The department heads are coming in, Thursday, December 16th.
Ah,
Does anybody else wanna talk to any other department? I know the library's asking for a full-time, are you on the committee for the library? Okay, so, does any, I mean,
And it's,
Yeah, bring them in front of us.
yeah,
But they were meeting tomorrow, so if you want to.
there would be updates.
Tell them,
Alright,
so they can discuss it.
alright,
The heavy hitters who want to
I
do
can
that.
ask them to come in then.
Library's not a heavy hitter, but
No,
it's not an essential function of government, so.
right, that's why I'm seeing them, make them make their case. Just to see what they have to say.
Yeah, just saying, you could get the budget, it's over by what, 400,000? So, I mean, you could get it flat eliminating or privatizing the library and direct departments.
I gotta go.
Yeah,
good call. Thank you, Chris.
okay,
On
I'll
that
get with
note,
them. Alright, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good luck, Chris.
Have a good night.
Yeah, finish it up, you guys got it.
Yeah, we'll
Facilities,
finish soon.
Michael's not here, does anybody have, did anybody take Michael's place? Was there a meeting? They haven't met yet, okay.
Yeah, we just had this meeting last Thursday, so.
Right, so it's
Right.
only been a few days.
Alright,
You
getting
should
ahead
go
of myself,
quick.
We
alright.
could skip most of the committee.
I don't have
I could
anything
do
for committee
transition.
planning,
I could do transition,
Okay.
cause we met yesterday.
perfect.
We looked at Frontline, which is one of the applications we talked about last week, that the SAU has been paying for 4 modules and town only uses 2 of them apparently.
We just started paying for the timekeeper one. It's literally November, I think.
Yeah, so that's, why start now?
Because
You know, the year's half over.
we don't have what we can do.
So anyway, we got the bids in for the financial systems. So we talked about them and had some follow-up questions. So we had 3 people respond to the RFP on that. But yeah, we need to kind of schedule some follow-up questions, and there's a new vendor that we haven't even heard of. That was, they responded to the RFP,
Well, that's good, options is good.
yeah, but,
I don't have anything for capital improvement, Tom, do you have anything, or
We're meeting Thursday.
meeting Thursday?
It's got a big binder to go through.
that's a big binder.
We'll have a recommendation hopefully for the school board for next meeting. And then, I think we'll need to adjust the proposed budget to it.
Okay,
We had only budgeted 3%.
they're going up higher,
This proposal's
okay,
a little higher.
alright. Alright, so we're gonna be meeting, we're not meeting Thursday, so we're meeting, next meeting Tuesday? Next Tuesday, the 14th.
the 60th.
On the 21st, we're having a special school board meeting to go over the modular bids, so we will not have any school board representation. I don't know what you have on schedule.
It says for the 21st, it's the town final, budget proposed request, so
So we probably
I
won't.
think you'll be good for that. I know you have to go to that one.
What's your Tuesday meeting agenda?
Tuesday, December 14th, school and town budget updates.
Right, so are we gonna be able to get the default for them? I think that was what,
We were
We don't
talking
have
about,
a meeting between now and, I have to find out if we have a first draft, we can show you what that is.
because other than that, it's just going straight to the final, right?
yeah, we haven't
And we need
seen
to
a
see it.
default at all.
Well, the default is the school board's default, I mean, you guys need to see it to see what the numbers are, but it's not.
It's higher than it should.
I think it, I haven't seen it yet, but I think it will be higher than the.
Okay.
Part of the question is how to deal with that, so you know.
So I don't know how much of a town budget update there would be for you. Since we've got department heads coming in. I wouldn't anticipate anything coming from the town.
Okay.
So you suggesting we don't need to meet on Tuesday?
I'm just telling you that,
From the town's point of
Town
view,
side, yeah.
there's not gonna be any more
Right, right,
updates
I
than what
wouldn't
Chris just said.
expect
yeah,
That you guys probably wouldn't have anything yet either.
But we just haven't seen,
So the only thing we'll have is the school update then.
I mean, I can let you know by the end of the week.
okay, that'd be great. So we'll plan on it unless I hear from Carol, otherwise unless John and I talk, I don't know. Anybody else have anything else for the budget committee tonight, or? No? Yep,
I'll make a motion to adjourn then.
all those in favor, meeting adjourned, say aye.
I
Meeting adjourned, thank you.